Hello everyone and welcome to round 2 of the FIDE World Cup 2025. This is the second game between Vincent, Keymer and Vladislav Kovalev. Kovalev defeated French Grandmaster Paul Velten. In the first round, Vincent was seeded directly into the second round as he's 2750. It doesn't really make much sense for him to go into the first round. And anyone above 2650 is seeded directly into round 2. So let's see what happens. Vincent won the first game. Can Vladislav equalize and force tiebreaks? Let's see what happened here. It's a really interesting game, and already around move 15 things start getting really serious. So Vincent opens with knight to f3. He starts off with a Reti. We have pawn to d5 and pawn to g3. The king's Indian attack. Knight to d7 and pawn to d4. We have knight to b6. Pretty weird setup, but it has been played many times. Knight to c3 and bishop to f5. Okay, we have knight to h4 going after the bishop right away, and pawn to e6. Spending 8 minutes on this move, so it's hard to say how much of this is actually preparation and was knight to h4 something that he thought that Vincent would be interested in going for. But okay, knight captures. Vincent again, not again, but also spent some 7 minutes deciding on this. E captures and queen to d3. You can see by the situation on the clock, both of them are starting to spend time. So this is very early in the game. Sometimes we have move 20 without players even spending a minute. But okay, pawn to g6 with bishop to g2 and pawn to c6. Here there are some games where bishop to f4 was played, also pawn to a4 with the idea of pawn to a5 is a known idea. Here we have pawn to f3 by Vincent, and it is now as of move 9 that we have a completely new game. Bishop to g7, we have pawn to b3, queen to f6, and now pawn to e3, pawn to h5, and pawn to h4. And the problem for Vladislav here is that he has to win the game to force tiebreaks, and really Vincent doesn't have any problems in the position. He's doing well on the clock, so he's just gonna castle kingside most likely, and not a lot you can do to push here. So instead of going for something like 97 castles and playing a normal game, Vladislav decides to go pawn to f4. And it's a pretty interesting idea. It frees up the f5 square for the g8 knight. The idea is 97 to f5, and then you weaken the h4 pawn. But maybe 97 and then something like f4 in the future. But okay, he has to do something, otherwise he's not going to get any chances. Obviously, you're not going to mess up your central structure. So g captures on f4 and knight to e7. Okay, we have knight to e2, knight to f5, and pawn to e4. Vincent immediately forces this knight to move. Knight captures on h4, and now bishop to h3. Okay, so what can Vladislav do here? Well, the problem is he can't really castle. If he castles kingside, then immediately e5. Queen moves, pawn to f5, with the idea of maybe even pawn to f6, or you can even capture on g6. And really, it's a terrible position for black. So like pawn to c5, pawn to f4, captures, you can capture on g6, captures bishop to d2, and it looks very complicated, but the white doesn't seem to be in any trouble. So after bishop to h3, c5 right away, going after the center, pawn to e5, we have queen to c6, and d captures on c5. Again, I thought this was a really wonderful idea because if you look at this position and you're in a situation where a draw is enough for you, you have the king in the center of the board, some of your pieces are still undeveloped, some are weirdly placed. You might be thinking, okay, let's play something like bishop to a3, quickly castle. But no, Vincent, as if having a soul of silicon, just captures on c5. D captures on c5. Queen captures and pawn to a4. He says, I have no worries here. Do what you want. Rook to d8 by Vladislav. Pawn to a5. Knight a8, preparing to shift the knight over to c7. And rook to a4. Okay, now you can pressure with f5. You're going to put pressure on the knight there. Also, you have control over d4, entire fourth rank, basically. We have pawn to a6, and now knight to d4. We have queen to c7, and bishop back to f1. Pawn to g5 and king to d1. Very useful move. Your opponent has a dark square bishop, so your king will be better placed on a light square. Also, it helps out with the defense of the c2 pawn if it is ever attacked, and also gets away from the range of the knight, so you never have to worry about getting checked. We have knight back to g6. knight to f5, attacking the bishop on g7 that's undefended, king to f8, and now bishop to a3 with check, king to g8, and now bishop to d6, attacking the queen on c7, queen to c6, and bishop to e7. And not a whole lot black can do here. Of course, capturing is out of the option because the knight captures with check, picks up the queen. So rook to c8 and bishop captures on g5, defending the f4 pawn. And again, Vincent without a single weakness in the position. And you can see that Vladislav is really running out of options. He's also very low on time, below 1 minute on the clock. Goes knight c7, tries to reintroduce the knight into the game. Knight captures. And while you could capture and face bishop to f6 check, Vladislav tries knight b5, maybe some chances against the white king. King to d2, knight to c3, and now rook to d4. We have queen to c5 and bishop to h3, putting pressure on the rook, rook to c6, and pawn to b4. The best move in any position, and so it is in this one. We have queen to a7, getting the queen completely out of the game, and now bishop to d7. Attacking the rook, we have knight to b5. One last attempt at a trick, but it's hard to even imagine something going wrong here. Vincent just played knight to f5, and he was in this position on move 36 that Vladislav Kovalev resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. Once you play a few more moves, let's say captures, there's really no defense against e6. Plus, your rook here is saying whatever you play doesn't matter. Let's say rook to c4, you can even play c3. You defend the knight on d4, and now e6 is coming. Even if you try to stop it with knight f8 and rook g1, nothing the black king can do to survive. You have to go back, knight g6, and then you can even go bishop to f6. Anything wins, really. Rook to h7, you can give up the exchange, captures, and now you just checkmate the black king. So yeah, it was looks like just a crushing victory for Vincent, but it was Vladislav who overpushed with that f4 move, and I mean Vincent is not the kind of player you can overpush anything against. You have to be extremely precise, and then while you're doing that, play 50 more precise moves in a row, and then you might have a chance of beating Vincent. By playing a move like pawn to f4, that is simply not happening. Vincent has no weaknesses in calculating. He will calculate everything out. And this is, the result. So Vincent goes into round 3. We'll see who he faces. And Wesley So was asked before the round started who are his favorites to win. Wesley, of course, chose himself, but he also said that some of the favorites for winning the tournament or even just qualifying for the candidates tournament via the FIDE World Cup are Vincent Keymer here and also Pragnananda. So those were Wesley's top 3 choices. Giving himself the most chances, but yeah, he said also Prague and Vincent. So yeah, very nicely done by Vincent, as expected, but you never know. There were already quite a few surprises in the World Cup, and we're going to cover at least one more game today. I know the game you guys want to see, so that is the one that I'm showing next. Worry not. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Congratulations to Vincent on such a wonderful victory. I would like to thank Francesco Corradi, Uzi Shalev, Francisco Santana, Deepak Gangadaran, and Eddie Sphere for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. Really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.